Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio. So today, we are looking at a frankly ridiculous deck that managed to get championship points at a huge regionals in Charlotte, North Carolina this past weekend, home of my beloved Charlotte Hornets. And it is such a fun deck. I want to show it to you. I want to give you the list. I want to tell you all about it and how it works. But first, huge shout out to @NoelSkaySkay on Twitter, who is the person who actually came up with this deck and played it in Charlotte and went and got the championship points. Now, it actually starts off very much like a quad Talonflame deck, like we've seen before, like I made a video on before. But it uses the cards from Ultra Prism to just get better. Now, first of all, we have Talonflame, and you want to start Talonflame. You want Talonflame as your starting Pokemon every single game. Talonflame has the amazing ability Gale Wings, which says that you can put it down as your starting Pokemon if it's in your hand at the beginning of the game. So you get to start your game with 130 HP Pokemon, with a weakness to fighting, and a really good attack Aero Blitz, 40 damage, and you search your deck for any two cards and put them into your hand. If you can start with this, it's amazing. And Noel here only actually played 6 basic Pokemon, 4 Talonflame and 2 Fletchling. Now this does mean you are going to mulligan quite often. There are going to be many games where you do not have any basic Pokemon in your hand to start the game, so you have to shuffle up and give your opponent an extra card. It happens, ladies and gentlemen, although as a side note, because you're going to mulligan so often, N becomes a really, really good card in this deck. It is an automatic 4-off. So Talonflame here is pretty good, and you use Aero Blitz, 40 damage while searching for cards, and it means your deck becomes more consistent. It's alright, but 40 damage is a little bit low. And you also go ahead and play Talonflame Break. Now, Talonflame Break does 2 things. Number 1, it puts your HP up to 170, which is nice. Number 2, it gives you access to Flare Blitz, 150 for 2 Fire Energy. Now, this deck does not play any Fire Energy, but you do play Counter Energy. If you're behind on prizes, you pop a Counter Energy onto Talonflame Break, and then you get to go and hit 150 for essentially a single energy attachment, which is nice. And then, of course, if you go and add a Choice Band on there, you're actually hitting 180, and that'll get you a one-hit KO on a bunch of relevant Pokemon, Tapu Lele being the most obvious example. Now, as a side note, we're going to get here in a minute, Super Boost Energy will not work with Talonflame because it's not a Stage 2 when it breaks evolves, it is a break evolution. So I suppose you could use it with Talonflame, but when you break evolve, all of a sudden, it's not a Stage 2. Now, as far as I'm aware, I haven't been able to find a ruling on this exactly, but I believe that is the case. Talonflame is always a Stage 2, it's essentially an unevolved Stage 2, but as soon as you break evolve, it's no longer a Stage 2 Pokemon. And then we get to the other part of the deck, Rampardos from Ultra Prism. Now, Rampardos is a great card with 2 really good attacks. Clean hit, 60 damage, 120 against an evolution Pokemon. Clearly, this gets your one-hit KO on Zoroark GX, which is everywhere and easily the best Pokemon in the format at the moment. And then free fighting energy, instant KO on a basic Pokemon. Now, the free energy looks a little bit expensive here, but you've got counter energy and you've got super boost energy. Counter energy will be 2 of these energies, super boost energy will be all 4 of these, so this is actually something you can use. Now, getting a fossil out at the moment is a bit awkward, because you've got to get unidentified fossil out as an item card, then you've got to evolve it, usually using rare candy. It looks kind of awkward. But of course, using Talonflame to search out these cards is going to be much, much easier than it would otherwise be. And you're already going to be playing Rare Candy for Talonflame, because as much as you can start with Talonflame, you can put it down if it's in your hand at the beginning of the game. You're still going to need Rare Candy to evolve the other ones. And actually, because Gale Wing says put it down as your active Pokemon, you wouldn't be able to put any down on the bench, even if you started with more than one in your opening hand, which is unlikely. given that you can only start with one, the reason you play 4 Talonflame, 2 Fletchling is purely because you want to start with Talonflame. In an ideal situation, statistically speaking, you should hit 2 out of every 3 games will be Talonflame. So if you're playing in a best of 3, as most big tournaments are nowadays, you should, in 2 of your 3 games in that series, start with a Talonflame. Your tournament will go a lot worse if this is not the case. Now, in terms of item cards, the really unusual thing we see here is Order Pad. Order Pad is not a card we see played in many decks. I told you when I did my review of Order Pad that it's a kind of card that won't see a huge amount of play, but will be played in some decks. At least I hope that's what I said, because at least sitting here now, that's what I think of Order Pad. Order Pad allows you to flip a coin, if head, search for an item card and put it into your hand. Why is it so good in this particular deck? Because of Unidentified Fossil. You cannot use an Ultra Ball to search out an unidentified fossil, which means you've got to find another way. Order Pad is that other way. It does mean you're playing a whole bunch of items, which does mean that then Garboda becomes a little bit of an issue. But you are getting a one-hit KO on Garboda for a single energy with Rampardos. So you shouldn't be, as long as you can get your Pokemon out, you shouldn't be too worried about Garboda anyway. Now, I should also mention here, this deck plays 0 Tapu Lele. And the reason is very simple. You're not playing many basic Pokemon. So even playing 1 Tapu Lele would mean you should start with it 1 in every 7 games. 2 Tapu Lele, you should start with it 1 in every 4 games, and so on and so on. It's too much of a liability. You basically just have to take the risk that you may have some slow starts, but hopefully that's going to be mitigated by the fact that you're playing Talonflame. Now, the other thing to notice here is there are 0 Bridget in this particular deck list. But then again, you're only playing 2 Fletchling. You're evolving Rampardos from an unidentified fossil, so you can't get that with Bridget. You are, in fact, only playing 2 basic Pokemon, 2 Fletchling, in this entire deck. So why would you go out of your way to play Bridget? That doesn't make very much sense at all. You do play Max Potion here because you're basically looking at single energy attackers in Talonflame and Rampardos. Even when you attack with Talonflame Break, you're still discarding that counter energy the second you use it. When you're not keeping energy on them, Max Potion makes absolutely perfect sense. And you are playing Puzzle of Time here because you need to recover stuff like Unidentified Fossil. If you get a Professor Sycamore turn 1, getting rid of 3 of those Unidentified Fossil, you aren't getting them back. You cannot Super Rod for Unidentified Fossil. It's not a Pokemon. So you do need to go ahead here and play Puzzle of Time. It's got to be done. Now, in terms of the energy, the only basic energy you play here is Fighting, because you need Fighting energy for Rampardos. You do not play Strong energy, because as good as that would be for Rampardos, you're getting a one-hit KO on Zoroark anyway. With a Strong Energy Choice Band, you'd only be doing 170 to an Evolved EX, which, to be perfectly honest, isn't going to KO any of them unless they're weak. And against a basic, you're only doing a base damage of 60. You don't need Strong Energy here, and you can't use Strong Energy for Aero Blitz. You don't play it. You do play Counter Energy for both Talonflame Break and Rampardos, and you do play Super Boost Energy. Now, you can only play 1 because it's a Prism Star, and like I've said, you can't use it on Talonflame Break, I'm fairly sure, but you can use it for Rampardos, and you can, for 1 energy, KO any basic Pokemon. That's pretty gosh darned nice. Not something to rely on, but a handy bonus that you should get at some point during your games as you go through. Here is the list in its entirety. Like I say, not my list. It came from @NoelSkaySkay on Twitter, but they tweeted it out to the public, so I feel okay using it. Plus, Noel follows me on Twitter, so I'm hoping he doesn't hate me. Shout out to him. I love this deck. I love people that play decks like this. He did say on Twitter that he started Fletchling more than he opened Talonflame. If that is true, that will explain why he only got top 256. This has a decent matchup against the best Pokemon in the format. There's no GXs, so your opponent has to take 6 prizes on 6 individual Pokemon to win the game. It's got a lot going for it. The big downside of this deck, you kind of need to start Talonflame. and Rampardos evolves from unidentified fossil, and you can't really play Tapu Lele, and it all just starts getting a little bit awkward. But that aside, ladies and gentlemen, this is a great deck, and I would heartily recommend giving it a go. I'm going to try and see if I can get a few games in with this on my stream at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, I want to hear from you on this, so let me know in the comment section. Do you think this is a viable deck? Have you played it? Have you played against it? Give me your stories. Go nuts, but be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, etc., then head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far, the most important thing as always is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.